Don't be so sensitive, Kyle. It was just a joke. That's what she whispered in my ear, right after the entire room had laughed. Right after her boss raised his eyebrows at me like I was the evening's entertainment. Right after her friend, Maeve, actually snorted into her wine glass. Just a joke. A joke about my life. My work. My future. A joke about the one thing I'm proud of, the thing that kept us fed while she was still figuring things out. A joke told in front of 60 people in suits, by the woman who said she wanted to spend the rest of her life with me. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there, blinking too much, clutching the edge of my glass like it could anchor me. She kept smiling, like she hadn't noticed the way my face went cold. I remember looking around the rooftop. People were already turning away, done with me. Back to their networking, their flutes of champagne, their tired compliments about the skyline. I was background again. Just some guy standing beside the woman who won Employee of the Quarter. I shouldn't have come. I knew that when we stepped off the elevator. I knew it when she made me change my shoes. I knew it when she told me, try not to talk about your job unless someone asks. But I came because I loved her. God, I was such an idiot. The music changed. People laughed again. She leaned in, kissed my cheek like that erased everything, and then walked off to hug someone named Darian or Derek or Devin. I don't remember. I just stood there, alone, sweating through my collar. I kept hearing it echo in my head. He fixes vending machines. Isn't that adorable? No one looked at me the same after that. I became the joke, the mascot, the man she picked off the clearance rack and paraded around like an ironic fashion choice. And still, I didn't leave. Not then. No. I waited. I waited until the room was watching again, until the attention returned. And then I did something I never thought I had the guts to do. But I'll tell you what that was in part two. Because that's the moment everything changed. I didn't follow her when she walked away. I just stood by the drinks table, pretending to be interested in a bowl of olives I didn't even touch. One of them had a toothpick sticking out like a little flag, and I watched it tremble slightly from the wind, or maybe from my hand shaking. It's strange what you notice when you're humiliated. I couldn't hear what people were saying anymore. I just saw mouths moving, eyes glancing, shoulders nudging. No one dared approach me. Not even to be polite. They were probably afraid I'd tell them about vending machines, or, worse, actually be sincere. She came back 20 minutes later. Her lip gloss had been reapplied. She smelled like someone else's cologne. Someone she hugged too long. She laughed like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't ripped my dignity out of my chest and paraded it around like confetti. I'm starving, she said, reaching for a bacon-wrapped something. Aren't you having fun? I didn't answer. I just looked at the ring on her finger. It looked heavy all of a sudden. Too heavy for someone who threw me under the bus to make people giggle. That's when she noticed. My silence. My face. Oh, come on, she muttered, leaning in close. Kyle, I was just trying to be funny. These people have no sense of humor. You know I didn't mean it. She kept talking, spinning, explaining, justifying, but none of it landed. My ears rang. My throat was tight. I thought of my dad. He would have walked out the second she made that comment. My mom would have thrown her wine in Amber's face. Me? I was still standing there like a coward. And then I did something I didn't plan. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the little black box I carried all night, because I thought, God help me. I thought maybe tonight would be special. I thought maybe I'd surprise her with a second, fancier ring. Something more worthy of her world. Instead, I opened it, took out the ring. Her eyes widened, not in joy, but in panic. Kyle, not here, she whispered. But I wasn't proposing. I took her hand, and slowly, without a word, I slid the engagement ring off her finger and replaced it with the new one. Then I let go of her hand and walked away, leaving both rings on the table behind me. Two symbols of a love I thought was real. Two reminders that I was the only one who took any of it seriously. Behind me, people started whispering again. But this time they weren't laughing. They were watching a man unravel. And she couldn't spin it into a joke fast enough. She didn't come after me. Not right away. I walked down the rooftop stairs, not even bothering with the elevator. I didn't want to wait, or hear music, or catch my reflection in those mirror-like doors. I wanted air. Real air. Not perfume nonsense. Not string lights and curated playlists, and people who clink glasses after laughing at strangers. I reached the street and just stood there, facing the black asphalt like it had answers. For the first time in a long time, I didn't know where to go. I couldn't go home. We shared that space. I couldn't go to my shop. It was locked and cold. I thought about driving, just aimlessly, letting the night swallow me. And then I heard the sharp sound of her heels behind me. She caught up, breathing too fast like she'd run, but I knew she hadn't. She never runs unless it's for show. What the hell was that? She snapped, grabbing my arm like she had some claim over it. I didn't answer. I just looked at her hand. Still bare. Still missing the ring. Do you have any idea how that made me look? She hissed, stepping in front of me like she could block the whole world out. You embarrassed me. In front of everyone. That sentence hit like a slap. She was embarrassed. She was embarrassed. Not because she humiliated me. Not because she turned me into a joke in front of her entire professional network. No, because I didn't stand there and smile through it. Because I didn't play along like the obedient little side character in her carefully polished life. I think that's when I really saw her. Not Amber the fiancée. Not Amber the woman I fell for. Just Amber, who needed the right lighting, the right moment, the right version of me. I didn't do anything you didn't do first, I said, my voice shaking. Not with rage. With grief. She blinked, and for the first time all night, her smile cracked. Just a little. Like she realized I wasn't bluffing. Like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't going to be one of those fights we pretend didn't happen tomorrow morning. Are you really doing this over a joke? She said. But there was less venom in her voice now. Just confusion. Maybe fear. I didn't have the energy to explain that it wasn't about a joke. It was about all the little things she let slide. The quiet belittling. The way she introduced me like a rescue dog she picked up to feel grounded. The way she only kissed me when no one was looking and never held my hand when someone was. It all came to a head with one laugh. That was all it took to make everything finally collapse. She tried again, softer this time. We can go back upstairs. Just act like nothing happened. We'll talk later. You caught me off guard. That's all. And for a moment, one stupid, fragile second, I almost nodded. But then I saw a couple from the party walking by behind her, slowing their steps just enough to listen in, pretending to scroll their phones. And I remembered the exact sound of their laughter. So I said the one thing she never expected to hear. No, Amber. We're not going back upstairs. You are. She laughed nervously, as if I was kidding. But I wasn't. And when she realized that, when she saw I was serious, her face changed completely. That's when she said it. The thing I'll never forget. The thing that made this about so much more than pride or pain. She crossed her arms, stepped back, and said, Fine, go cry about it, vending boy. And then she turned around and walked away. Back to her rooftop. Back to her people. Back to the version of herself that didn't include me anymore. She thought that was the end. It wasn't. Not even close. I didn't sleep that night. I drove aimlessly until the gas light came on, then parked at a dark gas station on the edge of town and sat there, listening to the clicks of the cooling engine like it was trying to say something I couldn't translate. I scrolled through our old photos. Her smile. My stupid grin. The pictures where I held the camera too low or too high and she'd make fun of me. I wondered how many of those smiles were real. I wondered how many were hers and how many were someone else's version of who she was supposed to be. She didn't text. Not once. Not a missed call. Not a question. Not even a where are you? She left me outside that building and went right back to her world. I could see it playing out in my mind like a movie. Her walking back in, laughing it off, saying something clever like, well, that was dramatic, and everyone moving on, because they would. People like that always move on. They don't unpack things. They don't sit in parking lots at 2 a.m. wondering if they're the punchline or just slow at understanding the joke. I thought about calling my brother. He always said she was a little too curated, whatever that meant. I didn't call. I didn't want to hear, I told you so, from someone who lives in a camper and still owes me $400. Instead, I drove home. The apartment was dark when I walked in. Her shoes weren't by the door. Her coat wasn't on the hook. The bedroom was untouched, bed made. She hadn't come back. But the champagne glass from the night before was still on the kitchen counter. Lipstick print intact. Like a fossil. Like the last trace of someone who once loved me. I sat at the table for a long time, staring at that glass, thinking about all the stupid things I'd put up with. The way she interrupted me. The way she corrected how I said certain words when her friends were around. The way she once told me not to wear graphic tees because they made me look too local. I didn't even know what that meant. I let all of it slide because I thought love was supposed to be about compromise. But now it just felt like quiet erosion. It was almost sunrise when I finally went to the closet and started pulling my things out. not hers. Mine. The ones I brought into this relationship. The ones that still had my name stitched inside the collars. I wasn't leaving. She was. She just didn't know it yet. And then I saw something I hadn't seen before. Behind the closet door, tucked in the corner, was a slim black box. I didn't remember putting it there. When I opened it, I recognized the envelope inside immediately. It was from my mom. From last year. The engagement card she mailed from Florida because she was too sick to travel for the actual party. I hadn't seen it since the move. Amber said she'd put it somewhere safe. Apparently, that meant burying it behind a stack of boxes labeled winter accessories. I opened the card. Read my mom's handwriting. If she makes you smaller, she's not the one. She wrote that before she even met Amber. And suddenly, it didn't feel like a breakup anymore. It felt like a rescue. But Amber didn't know that yet. She still thought she was in control. And she had no idea what was waiting for her the next day. She didn't come home until nearly noon the next day. I heard the key in the lock while I was sitting on the living room floor, folding the same hoodie 3 different ways without knowing why. I didn't move. I didn't even look at the door. I just listened as she stepped inside, heels clicking softly like she didn't want to wake guilt that wasn't hers to carry. She paused when she saw me. She was still dressed like the night before, makeup smudged at the corners, hair pulled into a messy bun that probably took 30 seconds and 0 regret. She said my name like a sigh. Kyle. And then, can we talk? I nodded. Slowly. Like it physically hurt to do. She started pacing, arms crossed tight, talking fast, like if she stopped, the silence would swallow her whole. She said she'd had too much to drink. That she didn't mean it that way. That people misunderstood. That I overreacted. That I humiliated her. That I should have waited until we got home. Then she cried. The soft, practiced kind. The kind she probably used when she missed deadlines or needed extensions in college. Not ugly crying. Not shaking or sobbing. Just perfect, glistening tears with mascara tracks. Pain performed for maximum emotional leverage. She reached for my hand. I pulled it away. And for the first time, I saw her face twitch. Just for a second. Something flickered. Not sadness. Not shame. Annoyance. Like she'd run out of patience. Like my heartbreak was becoming inconvenient. I stood up. Said nothing. Just walked past her, opened the coat closet, and pulled out the one thing that had been sitting there all night. A plain cardboard box. Her things. Not everything. Just the ones that mattered. The framed photo of her graduation she insisted stay on the bookshelf even though it wasn't mine. Her curated perfume collection. The journals she never let me read. Her tea mugs. The fake succulent she bought because it added warmth. And the dress she wore last night, folded neatly on top, like a ghost. She blinked. What is this? I didn't answer. I just handed her the box. She didn't take it. Her voice rose, cracking at the edges. You're seriously kicking me out? After one joke? I looked her in the eyes. I hadn't done that since last night. I made sure this time she saw everything. The exhaustion, the sadness, the deep, bottomless betrayal. I wanted her to feel it settle in the space between us like dust. You didn't make one joke, I said quietly. You've been telling them for months. Last night was just the first time I laughed too. She stared at me, not crying anymore, not even pretending, just frozen. I placed the box on the kitchen counter, next to the untouched champagne glass. Then I walked back to the bedroom and shut the door. Behind it, I could hear her breathing. Shallow, controlled, calculating. She didn't yell. She didn't beg. She just stood there, and I knew exactly what she was thinking, that this was just a phase, that I'd come crawling back, that I needed her more than she needed me. She didn't know I'd already sent the email to the landlord, removing her name from the lease. She didn't know what else I'd found in her nightstand drawer while she was gone. She didn't know about Devin, but she would. Very, very soon. I didn't sleep again. Not even a little. I lay on my side of the bed, if it could still be called that, and stared at the outline of the ceiling fan blades spinning in the dark. The room felt colder. Not physically, not really, but the warmth that used to hum in the background, the invisible sense that someone cared you were breathing next to them, was gone. Like she'd taken it with her in that box I left on the counter. Only, the box was still there. I could hear the cardboard shifting when she moved around it. She didn't speak to me again that day. I think she was waiting for me to cave. For the version of me she was used to, quiet, pliable, too soft to push back, to return and apologize for having feelings. But I didn't. I stayed behind the door, half-dressed, staring at the drawer she never let me open. It had always bugged me. We didn't have secrets, or at least I didn't think we did. But there was one drawer on her side of the bed she kept locked with this cheap silver latch. She once told me it had boring girl stuff in it. Tampons, journals, receipts. She made a joke about how no man should ever want to go in there unless he was suicidal. Last night, while she was out laughing on rooftops, I found the tiny screwdriver I used to pry open vending machine keypads and pop the lock. It was easier than I thought. Inside was a stack of envelopes tied with twine. Not bills. Not letters from her grandma. They were birthday cards. Notes. Little scribbled things signed with A.D. Devon. The name wasn't unfamiliar. I'd heard her mention him a few times. Coworker. Graphic design. Worked in branding. Once gave her a ride home when her car wouldn't start. Apparently, he gave her more than that. One of the notes still had a faint smear of lipstick. It wasn't mine. It wasn't even close to the shade she wore around me. Another had a date, 3 weeks before our engagement, and a line I read 12 times before I believed it was real. I wish I could wake up next to you without feeling like a secret. I remember staring at it, feeling nothing at first, then a trickle of nausea, then heat rising in my face like I'd been slapped, but by a ghost. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to. I imagined it 10 different ways, none of them satisfying. Because what could I say that wouldn't make me look pathetic? I had already been the joke. Now I'd be the fool. So instead, I waited. I watched her move around the apartment like nothing was broken. She didn't even ask if I was okay. She just showered, changed, sat on the couch scrolling her phone like she was bored of waiting for me to apologize. I think she believed the fight was over, that the story had been written. Amber, misunderstood and overreacted to. Kyle, emotional but forgivable, back to normal by Monday. But that version of us had died somewhere between the rooftop and the drawer. So I made a choice. I waited until she stepped out to grab her overpriced coffee from the place on 4th Street. She always left her laptop unlocked. Said she didn't need passwords because who would even care about my stuff? I cared. I sat down, opened her Slack app, and searched for his name. Devon. Dozens of messages. Some deleted. Some hidden in threads I had to click through manually. But one stood out, a video. Short. Only 12 seconds. Sent at 1:43 a.m. Just her face. Whispering, I miss you, even when he's right next to me. The bedroom behind her looked familiar. Because it was mine. That was the moment something inside me shut off. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to the bathroom mirror. I looked at myself. At the man who'd been shrinking for months. At the man who stopped laughing first. At the man she thought would never fight back. She had no idea what I was about to do. But Devon would. He'd find out before she did. And neither of them would be laughing this time. I didn't plan it. I didn't script out a speech or imagine what I'd say. I just scrolled through her contacts while she was in the shower and found his name. Devon W. Branding lead. His profile photo looked like the kind of guy who always smiles at himself in mirrors. I tapped call before I could talk myself out of it. He answered on the second ring. Hey, this is Devon, he said casually, like he was halfway through sipping something with oat milk. I didn't say my name. I just said, she's in the shower. There was a pause, the kind that lasts less than a second but somehow holds a full-blown panic attack. Who is this? You already know. Silence again. Longer this time. I heard him exhale. Not with fear. With exhaustion. Like he'd been waiting for this call for weeks. Look, man, he finally said, his voice quieter now, less smooth. Whatever you think happened. I cut him off. It's not what I think. It's what I read. What I saw. What she said to you at 1:43 in the morning while she was wearing my t-shirt. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. I didn't know she was still with you, he muttered. I thought. She told me you guys had ended things. That you were living together until the lease was up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. But I didn't. Because something about his voice, the pathetic honesty in it, told me he wasn't lying. Not fully. Maybe not at all. She's been lying to both of us. I said. I haven't talked to her in weeks, he added. I stopped replying when I realized she wasn't. I don't know. Serious. Or clean. That word hit me harder than I expected. Clean. Like she was toxic. Like she'd infected both of us and was still walking around smiling, never once showing symptoms. I almost hung up. But then he said, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean for any of this. And something strange happened. I believed him. Not because I wanted to, but because his voice cracked a little when he said it. And because I'd been the other guy once, a long time ago, and I knew what it felt like to realize you were part of someone else's lie. I don't want anything from you, I said. Just remember this moment. He didn't respond. I ended the call. When she stepped out of the bathroom minutes later, wrapped in a towel, humming to herself like she wasn't living in a crumbling lie, I didn't say a word. I just watched her walk past me. And in that silence, I made a new decision, one I hadn't expected, one that surprised even me. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to tell her I knew. I wasn't going to explode, accuse, or demand answers she'd lie her way through anyway. No, I was going to do something worse. I was going to let her feel safe. Then I was going to take everything she thought I couldn't live without and walk away without blinking. She'd created a version of me, harmless, weak, easy to mold. That version was already dead. She just hadn't realized yet. But tomorrow morning, she would. And it wouldn't come with yelling. It would come with silence. The kind that follows someone who's finally done being chosen last in their own life. She didn't hear me leave. I was quiet. Not because I was trying to be, but because it just came naturally now. That silence I used to fill with explanations, with apologies, with softness. It had settled into me like a second skin. I didn't slam drawers. I didn't break anything. I didn't leave a dramatic note or cue up some emotional playlist. I just moved. By the time the sun began slipping in through the blinds, I'd packed everything that was truly mine. Not just what I brought into this apartment, but what belonged to me emotionally. The books I actually read, the shirts I liked when no one judged them, the tools I trusted, the pictures where my smile hadn't been filtered down to fit her world. I left the engagement ring. Not in a box. Not in the drawer. On her pillow. I didn't do it for effect. I didn't want her to cry. I didn't want to haunt her. I just wanted her to see something real first thing in the morning. Something small and silent that carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths. I walked out without looking back. The world didn't stop. Birds still chirped. A delivery van honked. A teenager on a bike almost clipped me as I crossed the street. Life was already moving on, even if she hadn't yet noticed. I stayed with my cousin for a few days, the one with the terrible hoodie collection and the loud dog that barks at ceiling fans. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and said, "About time." I didn't explain much, just said, "Yeah." And somehow that was enough. The strangest thing about heartbreak is how boring it gets once you've really processed it. It's loud at first, your mind racing with what-ifs and should-haves and why-would-shes. But eventually, it slows down. The pain stops feeling like fire and starts feeling like a paper cut. Still there, but manageable. A reminder, not a threat. 3 weeks later, I opened my own repair space on the other side of town. Just a small garage behind a bakery. Nothing fancy, but I hung a new sign. Whitaker Repairs. Honest work, no judgments. People came. Not a lot, but enough. An older guy with a busted espresso machine. A single mom whose washing machine had started leaking. A high school kid who cracked his phone screen the night after prom. I fixed what I could. Gave honest prices. Made enough to buy real groceries. And for the first time in a long time, I laughed. Not at myself, not nervously, but because I actually felt happy. A month after I left, Amber messaged me. Just 4 words. "Can we talk, please?" I stared at it for a long time. Not with anger. Not with hope. Just clarity. Then I deleted it. No reply. No closure. No drama. She knew what she did. And more importantly, I knew what I deserved. This wasn't a revenge story. It wasn't a love story, either. It was the story of a man who finally walked away from the wrong kind of spotlight and started living in his own. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.